Hello and welcome to the Daily Red, your lunchtime catch-up on all things Liverpool FC and your daily reminder that the Reds are 11 points clear at the top of the Premier League. Hope you're all well and having yourselves a tremendous day. Paul Joyce had some interesting stuff yesterday. He said that left-back is seen as a priority for the summer, and he name-dropped Jarrell Hato and Milos Kerkez as two left-backs that we've been watching. They're obviously both very, very talented young left backs, but they're completely different profiles. Kerkez is, well, he's like Andy Robertson. He's an up and down, attack minded, aggressive defender. But Jarrell Hato is completely different. He's more of a centre back profile. So for me, that could tell us one of a few things. Number one, potentially we're going to look to bring in two left backs and move on both Robbo and Costas and get left backs of different profiles, because then Arna has more options. Now, ideally, I think that is what you do. I'd like us to have a defensive right back to replace Trent, and then Bradley is that more attacking up and down kind of profile. And then have the same on the left side. So that could be what it is. The alternative is it could be that they don't yet know if Trent is going or staying. So if Trent was to stay, maybe you favor someone like a Hato type, because then you get more balance. You have Trent, who's taken an enormous step back defensively over the last couple of months. And then you have Hato on the other side, who can be a really strong defender, and you can defend with three. You can defend with Ibu, Virgil, and Hato, and you're going to be very, very comfortable in that situation. And it would allow Trent maybe a bit more freedom. If he does stay, maybe Arna starts to use him in some different ways. So it could be that either. These are likely two names off a substantial list that are being monitored. But it was interesting to see, and it's good to hear that at least it is going to be addressed in the summer of 25, when it should have really been addressed last summer and the summer before. He also said that Darwin Núñez is likely to leave this summer. Now, I think we've all known that's coming. But to hear it from one of the most reliable journalists around, you'd imagine it's well sourced. There's very little around things like that gets out there without it being purposely put out there. You'll all remember when Arna was hired, there was this, report. I think it might have been from Joyce, or maybe James Pearce, that one of the things Arna was being tasked with was developing Darwin Núñez, that was like an important thing that the club wanted. Now, I never fully bought that, because a couple of months prior, we had the report again from Joyce, again, you'd imagine directly leaked, that the recruitment department didn't want Darwin. They wanted Christopher Nkunku. And I know people will say, oh, but Nkunku's been crap since he went to Chelsea, which of course he has. But there's a lot of reasons why it's irrelevant what he's done at Chelsea. Like, a player not doing well at one club has no bearing on how he would have done at another club, with better players, in a different system, under a different manager. I think Nkunku, if he could have stayed injury-free, and he hadn't had a ton of injuries by the summer of 2022 when we would have been looking to buy him, I think if he stayed injury-free, he'd have been brilliant for us. I really do. But if Darwin goes, obviously it will mean a 9 coming in. Now, in recent weeks, we've had different reports, including from Sam Maguire, that Darwin, Diaz, and Jota could all depart this summer. And I know some people have said, oh, well, like, we'd like to keep Jota. And of course, as a player, you would. But you can't deny the fact that he's just not reliable from a physical point of view. As Cy Brundish always says, the best ability is availability. And it's just not there with Diogo. And it's unfortunate, but that is the case. And he's got 2 years left on his deal, and it's highly unlikely we're going to look to extend him. So you'd look to move him on this summer, where you can get a good price for him. And I think there will be clubs that would be very interested in bringing in a player like him. And then you see people say, oh, but then we have to replace all three of them. And FSG. If we can replace them for the money that we get by selling those players, then there's no issue. Like if we sold Jota for 40 million and signed Jonathan David on a free to replace him, he'll get a signing bonus, which would be about 10 million. You'd figure on about, 180, 200 grand a week. He'll probably get a 10 million signing bonus. So you're talking about a 30 million profit from the backup striker position. Then with Diaz, it's rumored that Barcelona are very, very interested. PSG have shown interest, but they won't be interested now, given they've signed Kvicha. But there's always been Saudi interest in him as well. And my bet is, if the Saudis offered him the bag, he'd run and take it. Because he's 28, he's never earned mega money. And it would bring generational wealth to his family. So if you could get 50, 55 for Diaz, I think you could probably get Semenyo for about 60. Maybe you go a bit more aggressive and you look at someone like Desiree Doué or Bradley Barcola if he wants out of PSG. And maybe then that price is 70, 80, whatever. But you're still breaking in and around even on Jota and Diaz out, Jonathan David and whichever winger comes in. You're either breaking even or making a significant profit. And then Darwin should fund his own replacement. Like if we get 80 million for Darwin, and the Saudis will be back for him, that club, Al Nazir, they signed John Duran. They're not the only Saudi club that were looking at him. So if we got 80 million for him, I mean, Ekitike wouldn't cost, I don't think he'd cost 80. I think you'd get him for 60, 65. I think you'd get João Pedro for about 75 to 80. I know everybody wants Isak, but Newcastle have been really clear, like 140 million is the price if they miss Champions League. And right now they were on course to make the Champions League because there's going to be 5 spots. I just don't think Isak is a real option this summer. I'd love him to be because obviously he's a phenomenal player. Victor Osimhen has a 62 million release clause. Edwards loved him when he was at Lille. Now, he does have some injury issues, and obviously his wage demands could be ridiculous, but I think he's someone we could look at. I think Retegui at Atalanta is worth a strong look. I still think Gyökeres is worth a look. His age might count against him. But I think we could replace Darwin for less than we get for Darwin. Like if I said to you, what we're going to do is we're going to sell Jota, we're going to get 40. We're going to sell Diaz, we're going to get 50. And we're going to sell Darwin and get 80. And there's 170 million. And what we'll do is we'll get João Pedro for 75. We'll get Cunha for 55. And then we'll get Semenyo for 60. And all of a sudden, we've now completely rebuilt our forward line. And the next spend is in and around 15 million, something like that. But that's not bad. That's doable. We can also remember sell Harvey, who doesn't have a spot in this team. Maybe you sell him and you go and you buy Tyler Dibbling. And Dibbling might even be a little bit cheaper than what we get for Harvey Elliott.